For now, let's take you to this story. Government says people travelling to South Africa with children will no longer have to carry documents proving parental consent. Now, Home Affairs effected this controversial policy back in 2014. Both foreigners and South Africans travelling with minors had to present the children's unabridged birth certificates. They also had to provide written parental consent. Now, this regulation was meant to curb child trafficking, but it backfired. Now, Grant Thornton is working on a report to highlight how much the country has lost as a result. We're joined now in studio by Lee-Anne Bac, a director at that company. I'm going to jump off my chair, Lee-Anne, and join you there on the studio floor. Thanks very much for coming in and joining us. It seems rather bizarre that government would put this kind of legislation into law when we are facing such incredible challenges when it comes to the safety of our children.
What do you mean by that in terms of that? In terms of the safety of our children?
Yeah, in terms of relaxing the documentation that's needed when you are travelling abroad with children.
So they haven't relaxed South Africans travelling abroad.
Yeah.
So South Africans travelling abroad are still required to have unabridged birth certificates when they're travelling with their children. And they're talking, Home Affairs is talking about introducing change to the passports as well. So you won't no longer need to have the unabridged birth certificates because the passports will then have details of the parents in that.
Right.
Their requirement is only relaxed for foreigners travelling into South Africa with children. And the rationale for that is that because the unabridged birth certificate is not an internationally standard document.
Right.
It's and so proof of identity of parents varies from country to country. Some countries don't even have birth certificates. So it becomes quite a complex situation. It also becomes very complex when you're trying to manage people traveling into a country, telling them the type of documentation that they're needing. And what's happened is that we've turned away a lot of potential visitors to our country. And you think about the impact on our economy, it's not millions, it's billions that we've lost in the last 4 years.
And especially when that message that you have to communicate is a different message depending on the country that you're dealing with.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's different requirements, and it becomes quite challenging, especially for single-parent households, or where parents are working in different countries and different areas. It's difficult to get consent from the absent parent to get a letter if you want to travel to South Africa. And many people have been turned away by airlines and at the border gates before they can even get to South Africa.
Yeah.
So the intention here is we're trying to open up our country and say, listen, we are actually open for families. We would like you to come and visit. From a child trafficking perspective, the stats are unknown, but it's a very small portion of what's happening in the world. And it's important that we don't try and throw out the baby with the bathwater, basically.
Right.
We need to look at holistically our economy and the benefit that tourism is going to bring versus the child trafficking issues. And child trafficking is more of an issue out the country than it is in the country.
Okay, so that's one section of what the minister announced in terms of the changes to visa regulations. Our business desk reporting that there are some changes that will make it easier for businesses to come into the country as well.
Yes, okay, so bearing in mind that we receive around about 10 million tourists, and when we talk about tourists, it's not just leisure tourists, it's business people coming into the country every year. And these people are very important for our economy. And so we need to make our country, we need to throw out the red carpet for them.
Yeah,
we want them, we need them. And the draconian laws that we put in 4 years ago in terms of our visa requirements has also cost us billions of rands in lost revenue.
Now, that's an important point, because who put those draconian laws? Who brought that to the table?
It was Home Affairs.
And who was the minister at the time?
It was Gigaba.
As well?
Yes, it was.
Right.
Okay. Right. So the tourism industry at the time...
So have we learned our lesson?
I don't know. I don't think so. Because if you look at the changes that the ministers announced on Tuesday, it's too little, too late, basically. It's not very much. If you look at what our competitive countries are doing. So what has been announced is that we're going to backtrack slightly on our visa requirements for Chinese and Indian tourists in particular. And the reason why I'm mentioning these two particular countries is that they are massive populations. They've got massive outbound tourist numbers. So for both those markets, we're getting around about 100,000 visitors per annum. Okay. If you think about from China, there's 130 million Chinese who travel outbound every year. So we're getting less than 0.1% of that market. And so the world is recognizing that this is a huge tourism potential and a huge impact on your economy. And many countries are relaxing visa regulations totally. A lot of our competitor countries throughout Africa are saying they're opening up their countries to Chinese visitors because they're recognizing that potential. And what we've done is said, okay, Chinese, you still need a visa, but now you no longer need to appear in person, which was a huge hindrance. And we're going to try and speed up the process, and you can give your biometrics on arrival. But we're still telling them they need a visa.
Right.
So it's a hindrance, it's a difficult, whereas other African countries are saying you can come without a visa. So we should, in my view, we should be rolling out the red carpet and trying to open up and make ourselves a tourist destination, a friendly destination, not only for leisure tourists, but for business tourists as well.
What's stopping us from, as you say, throwing out the red carpet?
I can't tell you. I don't know. It's a Home Affairs. Obviously, they're trying to balance economic benefits with safety and security issues. But I'm not party to their decisions as to why they're making these various decisions.
Now, I want to talk about, you mentioned that it might just be too little too late, given how much we've lost in terms of revenue to the economy, not millions, billions, you said. Do you have, as yet, a figure for what we have lost?
No, we haven't looked at it in terms of at to date, but when we looked at it in 2014, 2015, we were losing around about 15 billion rand per annum at that point because of the changes in the legislation.
And that's in rand?
That's in rand. Right. That's in rand. And that's because of both the unabridged birth certificate and the visa regulations.
Right.
And just as an example, in 2014, we put in visa requirements for the Russian market. We relaxed those. We took those away, I think it was the end of 2016. And we saw a 50% increase in the number of Russian visitors. Yes, there were other factors in their terms of their economy, but we saw a 50% increase in the number of visitors. Same thing we did last year was we put in visa requirements for New Zealanders. I mean, New Zealanders, they're required to now have a visa to come to South Africa. And we've seen a drop of 25% in the number of visitors from New Zealand coming to the country. And if you think about that, the multiplier effect, that's jobs.
Absolutely.
And what do we need in this country? We need jobs.
Absolutely. Okay, now I want you, if you can give us a projection for what these new changes now, what they might give us back in terms of the money that we've lost. If we were losing 15 billion rand a year in 2014 with those draconian regulations in place, how might we make up for that?
I don't think it's going to be a huge impact. To be honest with you, I don't think it's going to be a huge impact. The other thing I just want to caution us about is that the ministers made these announcements, but implementation is something different. We also had almost exactly the same announcements 3 years ago. I was looking back at all my historical tweets and comments, and at that time, 3 years ago, October 2015, there was an interministerial commission chaired by our then Deputy President, and our President, to re-look at all the visa requirements. And I was so optimistic that we were now going to turn the corner. And they made announcements about dropping unabridged birth certificate requirements. They'd made an announcement about relaxing visa requirements for Chinese and Indian visitors. Nothing happened. So although we had an announcement on Tuesday, the proof is in the implementation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in reality, the regulations have to change. If the regulations don't change, your airlines are bound by the regulations. So although the minister can say something, the airlines themselves are bound by what's written in regulations, and those have got to change. So until we actually see that change, and in reality as well, we also need the cost to our economy to change these regulations. It's not only just changing the regulations, we've got to retrain people, and we need to get the message out to our markets that these are the change requirements. And we spent 4 years telling everybody what you need and how you need to do this.
Now we're changing it.
And now we've got to change it.
Yeah. Lee-Anne, just before we let you go, because we are running out of time, this report that Grant Thornton is working on, is it the kind of report that will go through to the presidency as the president is looking to boost the economy, to bring in more revenue? Is this something that his economic advisors might look to, that you might push for them to look to?
We're actually not currently working on a report. We did it previously as an impact, so we're not currently working on a report. But we might be looking into it, we'll see. But we are working closely with the Minister of Tourism and the Minister of Tourism's advisors.
The message might get to the President.
Yes.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for coming into studio. Lee-Anne Bac is with Grant Thornton joining us in studio as we continue to unpack the effects, the very real effects, material effects on our economy of those new visa regulations.